Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do a brief little talk about the presidency of Bill Clinton. It was 8 years, and a lot of stuff happened during those 8 years. But also, it's remembered as a time when America tries to transition out of the Cold War and position itself and learn how to live up to the position of being the lone superpower in the world. But a little brief disclaimer before we move on. The Clinton presidency is way too recent for historians to have put together a proper historical narrative. There is no historiography to fall back on. There's not a lot of work by historians yet to fall back on because it usually takes about 30 years from the end of a historical event or a presidency before it is properly assessed by historians. So that's one of the reasons why this little Clinton talk is going to be so brief. But if you remember in our last lecture, Bill Clinton won in 1992. He was able to take the White House by defeating the incumbent president, George Herbert Walker Bush, and an independent challenger by the name of Ross Perot. Now, in that election, since it was split three ways, Clinton only received about 43% of the popular vote, but he did get a clear majority of the Electoral College. Now, right off the bat, Clinton has some issues. There are some scandals that are still hanging over him from his days as governor of Arkansas and some other things. There's some accusations that are hanging over him. He tries to reform health care with the help of his wife, First Lady Hillary Clinton. That does not go well. And in the 1994 midterm election, the Republicans win back the House of Representatives. Now, this is not really uncommon that the opposition party would win the midterm election in the first term of a president. It happens, but this is significant because the Republicans at this time period, they think they have Clinton on the ropes to knock him out in 1996, but over some government shutdown, some debates over the budget, Clinton kind of wins the sympathy of the American people. And not only that, Clinton moves more towards the center as a political candidate and president. He goes to the political center. So in 1996, the economy is kind of humming along, and Bill Clinton is able to defeat his challenger, the Republican Bob Dole, quite easily. But in that second term, the infamous moment, if you will, of the Clinton presidency, Bill Clinton becomes only the second president in American history to be impeached. The first president was Andrew Johnson back during Reconstruction. And of course, President Donald Trump became the third member of that illustrious list recently when he was impeached by the House of Representatives. But Bill Clinton was impeached for basically two reasons. He committed perjury. He lied to Congress under oath, and we're not going to really go into what he was lying about because this is a family show. And he was also, impeached for obstruction of justice. So Bill Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives, but the case went to the Senate, much like the other two impeachments in American history, and the Senate did not vote to remove the president from office. And there's a few reasons for that, and one of them is Bill Clinton was presiding over one of the longest periods of peace and prosperity in American history. The internet boom had kicked in. Our position as the lone superpower in the world had kicked in. Now, there were little flare-ups of military issues around the globe during his presidency, but for the most part, America experienced 8 years of peace, and the economy was humming along. So Bill Clinton, by the American public, during this whole impeachment issue, he had a lot of sympathy, just like he had in the 1996 election. So Clinton's presidency will end in 2001, after a very rocky 2000 election, which we'll talk about coming up here. His presidency will end and America's actually doing kind of well. But America wants to remove themselves in 2000 away from Bill Clinton because that whole impeachment thing, it was kind of a mess. So America's going to go a different direction. But it is important to remember, as we said earlier, and again, there's not a lot to fall back on. Historians haven't done a lot of work on this yet. But the Clinton presidency, scandal-ridden as it was 8 years of peace and prosperity during the 1990s. And I grew up in that era. It was kind of a fun time. Not a lot to worry about. But underneath the radar, during that time period, there is a great threat arising from the Middle East. And we're going to talk about the rise of radical Islamic terrorism as we get closer to the 9/11 tragedy coming up in a future lecture. So we'll pick up there later. Have a great day, and I hope to see you all very soon.